Hello, welcome to an event by Istanbul Literature House. This is within the framework of our fourth book festival, which is happening during 9th to 16th of September. We're welcoming a lot of boutique, independent, small publishing houses. And we are one of them, Kıraathane Books, Kıraathane Kitapları. And we're so proud to welcome one of our writers whose book of poems we published back in 2021, Paolo Colombo. Paolo, hello, welcome.
Hello, and thank you for welcoming me. Hi.
It's so wonderful to have you with us again, albeit online. And we are really proud here in Istanbul Literature House to have published this lovely book of poems.
Thank you.
Not in sleep nor in water.
Yes.
A lot of the poems here, Paolo Colombo wrote originally in English. He's a very multilingual person. And this little book is sprinkled with a few of Paolo's beautiful watercolors. Of course, I'm the proudest to have acted as the translator. I can't claim to have done a perfect job by any means. Sometimes when I take the book up, I see tiny things I could have done differently or a little better. But overall, I think it worked out very well. The point is, writing is final, translation remains fluid and open. Paolo, what are your feelings about translation in general?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I thought your translation was perfect. My battle Turkish is not really a very good Turkish, is enough to tell the sound and the rhythm. And I thought you did a superb job.
Thank you.
Number two, it is interesting to, sorry. It is somehow interesting and to say that a number of these poems were written both in Italian and in English. And they always had to have a similar sound, a similar verse, a similar rhythm, a similar nakedness, austerity of language. So I can't even say they're translation or not translation. Anything I wrote at the time when I wrote these poems, at least in the beginning, the first part of the book, which was ages ago, had to fit both the English and the Italian. And only the things that I was able to translate, mostly because of rhymes, stayed in either one language. So I did not do a translation really, but what I did is wrote in two languages. I think that's important part.
That's such a great facility. But translation in general, what do you think about it?
Well, I'm thankful. It's the main thing. I was able to read extraordinary things that were written in Turkish or Japanese or in any languages I did not speak and enjoy them infinitely. So I do not believe, as they say in Italian, traduttore, traditore, translator, traitor. No, I don't think that at all. I think translations are useful, are fantastic, and they can convey certainly the spirit and the exact words of what is written. So I'm totally in favor of translations for poetry as well.
Wonderful, which is the most difficult one to do. Yes. Well, I shouldn't be amiss. I mean, Paolo Colombo is so famous, he doesn't need an introduction. But for those who don't know or don't remember, I shall remind you very briefly. He said he wrote them in Italian, the poems, as well as in English, because Paolo is originally Italian from Torino. He's a poet, an artist, and a world-known curator of art. And I shan't go into detail, but I mean, from Venice to Mardin to Istanbul to Thessaloniki, he has curated so many biennales, so many exhibitions. He's directed so many art centers, and his poetry also appeared in Greek. But some of the poems, I think, in this book, the Mermaid Poems, are appearing in translation for the first time?
Absolutely. The Mermaid Poems are special for Turkey.
I'm so proud of that. Thank you so much, Paolo.
I'm thankful for the opportunity you gave me, but they don't exist in any other language besides English and Turkish. With exception, one poem is actually in Italian.
That's true. We shall come to that, and we shall talk about what you so aptly expressed as the nakedness of the language that you use, the economy of language. But before we come to that, can I please ask you to read one of the poems? Let's start that way. From the first section, if you want. Okay. I love little mythologies, but I love them all. So you decide which one you want to read.
Okay, here's one where I can also have an opportunity to speak about the translation. It starts with imprisonment, subway, trains, toilets, frontiers, hotels, dead monkey, tremors and dance steps to the music from common rooms. The rounds are periodical. Do not speak to me of a soul.
Lovely poem. I shall read it in Turkish. Hapsedilmişlik, metrolar, trenler, tuvaletler, sınırlar, oteller, ölü maymun, titreşme ve dans adımları, oturma alanından gelen müzikle, denetim vardiyaları değişiyor. Bana ruhtan söz etme. Beautiful.
Let me say a few things about, if I may.
Please do.
May. Like in many other poems, I give a sense of place and a sense of time, which I think is crucial to give, especially when you are as abstract as one can possibly try to be. In most of the poems in the book, there's very few adjectives. There might be a few predicates like common rooms, but it's not necessarily an adjective. It indicates a type of room. The beginning sets what it is about, which is about someone who's captive. Subways, trains, toilets, frontiers, hotels, dead monkey give an idea of a geographical status, of a geographical mood, of spaces that are transient, not fixed, they come and go. Dead monkey is slightly different in Italian. It's actually in Italian is cagna morta, dead dog, dead female, dead bitch. I certainly do not have dead bitch in English because of a mix. I just wanted an animal dead as indication of something very gentle and fragile, lying on the ground. It turns out better that's monkey in English for some reason. Monkey behind the back is it's usually in reference to people who have done drugs, even though the person I'm talking about never did drugs. But she's in a mental hospital. It's not mentioned. And tremors are her tremors, and dance steps as part of the entertainment in the hospital. And the music always came from the common rooms where the people, the places where people slept, where the patients slept, where they had no no record player.
In the Turkish, what gives it away is the rounds are periodical. Denetim vardiyaları değişiyor, because it is like a rota of the controllers, the guardians that are changing. And by the time we come to that penultimate sentence, we realize completely where we are.
Yeah. And that's the whole point. The rounds were periodical, and you could be on a 20 minutes check if you were in danger of endangering yourself, on a half an hour checks, 1 hour checks, 2 hour checks, but still, in all cases, periodical.
Well, now we can come to the fact that these are such intensely precise poems with a great economy of language, a striking fluidity, very, very short, very economic use of language. This shortness, did you start with it or did you work towards it?
I think in a way I started with it. It went hand in hand with how I began to paint, which was literally using the most elementary vocabulary. Let's say one thing, that poems are, they're certainly about language, but they're about image and they're about song. You can say things in poetry which you cannot say in any other, certainly not in prose and not in other language, because they are about image and song. If I may just read another poem to express exactly what I
Please do.
Shortest one, it's in the book. It's, I should be able to find it, so short as it is. Yeah, I found it. At night, the blind women of Athens, men close and speak of angels.
This is wonderful.
But again, I give...
Yeah, I'll say it in Turkish quickly. Geceleri Atina'nın kör kadınları giysi yamayıp melekleri konuşuyorlar. It's a wonderful imagery of blind women sewing and talking of angels. Wonderful.
But we know, okay, again, I give the space, the context, geographical context, and the time, at night. We know that blind women really cannot mend clothes. They don't see the tear. They cannot thread the needle. It's an image, which it would take 7 pages to justify in prose, somebody threading the thread, coming and going, etc., etc. But it also has the rhythm of song, and the song is tied literally to the image we have of a place and the rhythm. Let's say if I had written at night the blind women of Como and close and speak of angels, wouldn't have worked.
No, actually, yes, because Athens is a different kind of mythology, different kind of atmosphere. But tell me this, we're of course approaching or already in the 100th year of surrealism. I don't think you have anything to do with surrealism, but you do have this kind of, because, you know, blind women mending clothes, and then there's a castle on top of a volcano. Mm-hmm. So there are some dream-like images here, not realistic, but that very evocative. But they remind me of, you know, Italian art, like arte povera. Of course, we know a lot of and admire a lot of Italian writers whom you should have grown up with, like Cesare Pavese and, you know, Vittorini. But we know very little about Italian poetry. Were there any influences in your youth that you admired, some writers that?
Not that I know of. I recognize the main influence, or at least the main influence, not just for art, but a way of seeing, which was Seferis. I discovered at the age of 19 in the incredible translation by Edmund Keeley and Philip Sherrard. Most amazing translators ever. You asked me about the translations before. And that, with the discovery of a country where I live now, taking me away from the fogs of Torino or the snows of a Swiss-German mountain where I grew up, brought me and made me discover a country in which I had memories and rather than fantasies.
Okay. Because you went there as a young man, as a young boy, and also because your spirit is very Greek, Ilios. Your soul is very in line with the sun and shadow of Greece.
Yeah, definitely. But you mentioned the two words, sun and shadow, which really lead me in what was my main influence, which was a pictorial influence of an Italian artist who was born in Greece and grew up here his important years of his life, which is De Chirico, Giorgio De Chirico, and Savinio, Giorgio and Alberto Savinio, his brother, two enormous influences in my life, even though Savinio is slightly more surrealist. But De Chirico's work was not about dreams. It was literally about memories, childhood memories, about shadows, about the sunshine, about, you see in his paintings in the background, a choo-choo train, locomotive, cold locomotive, huffing and puffing. And in fact, his father was the first engineer who built the first train in Greece from Volos to, I don't know where, close to Volos. And that's why his family had moved here. That's why he grew up here. So it is very much about memories and about, okay, imagine memories, I have to say, because I did not spend my childhood here. I spent it at least important years from 11 to 18, 19 on top of a Swiss mountain where there was nothing. There was a boarding school and a farmhouse, and you could only reach it by funicular. So it was nature and reading and discovering.
Sequestered in a school.
It was sequestered in a school where I discovered very soon what I wanted to do in life, which I would never have done at home.
Wonderful. And then the light and shadow of Greece. I mean, De Chirico is one of my heroes in history of art, in painting. Those funny, sunny facades of his with shadows behind, and it's always sort of a play of light and shadow. And yes, I can understand now why your soul is so Greek, because in the poems, we see a lot of the influence of the Mediterranean, of a certain kind of culture, but also the richness of something, but also the loss of something, which is what I want to ask you next is, you know, we have a woman lying dead, lonely hotel rooms, lovemaking tinged with sadness. As I said, a castle on top of a volcano, an insane asylum or a mental hospital. These poems are about loss. What is it about loss that you are sharing with us through these memories? I mean, is it based on a kind of great loss that you experienced yourself, or did you imagine it?
No, it's based upon a loss. It's based upon a loss. But no, there is very little imagination. So all the facts which I describe are fundamentally true. They represent something that happened. I wanted to detach myself and present them in the most abstract way.
That is the most wonderful way to go about it, I realize now after reading your poetry, because it is a kind of imagery of loss, feeling of loss that we can all share, especially during these times. That's why I wrote in the blurb of the book that even though you started writing these poems slightly earlier in the 2010 or thereabouts, maybe, or even much earlier.
Earlier. The second part of the book, the 8 Mermaid Poems, were written in 2016. 2016, so it takes some time for me to get them out. But the first part of the book was so private that it was a gift to this person I lost 20 years later when I found her. So and I didn't think I ever was going to publish him. And then I decided, no, maybe I should publish him. And the gift was given. But it's certainly a part of me, and therefore, I should publish it.
It's a wonderful rendition of loss that runs through the poems. Of course, there are other themes as well, but I thought that now, because we published the book in 21, I encountered the book in 2020. Remember, we met briefly in Athens, and you were so kind,
very well.
So kind to give a copy of the book to me as a present, the Greek-English version. And immediately, as I read the poems, I was captivated, and I read them again and again. And probably by the third reading, I said, I have to translate these. It just came to me. I mean, I'm not a translator of poetry.
Well, you made a wonder.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. I mean, I did sort of childish tries in high school of translating Baudelaire or something, with whom you have something in common, by the way, not directly, but
equally as naughty, maybe.
Exactly. We'll come to that as well. You do display some kind of spleen or melancholy, but that poem about melancholy, please, let's read it. This string of rendition of loss runs through it, but not without hope. No. And I thought that, you know, the 20s, what we went through in the past 2.5 years and what we're still going through now, exacerbated with the war in Europe and all the horrors that we see around us in the world. That's why I wrote in the blurb that with the fragility of being human right now in the 2020s, this book just is so timely in that sense that it allows us to get in touch with our fragility without being afraid of it.
Thank you.
Do you agree?
I'm touched more. I totally agree. And I'm really touched. You think this.
But didn't you feel that it was so timely that it came out now?
I didn't think of any timing. I was super happy you publishing it, and I didn't think anything else besides that. But you say it's true. It is timely because we're going through a period of fragility and loss. Really are. But I will read you this poem, which you mentioned as Melancholy. And the first stanza is a quote. So it starts with inverted commas. And it's actually a person speaking. Melancholy penetrates me like a wedge. I don't care about anything anymore. Houses look at us. I have no shoes. I have no clothes. I have no beauty. Tomorrow, I'm expecting a visit from my parents. I don't care about anything anymore. This is what she said to me. She lost herself in rhapsodies of love. She was, in fact, beautiful. Let us now speak of melancholy. One evening, in the bluish light of a clinic, it was in a hallway, she rapidly showed me her breast. It was large and white.
this is such a sad and shocking memory. And also we witness a woman losing her beauty, her freedom, and you witnessing this as someone close to her with the pain, but you're not afraid of showing the awkwardness of the existential situation either. You're very fearless in your art. This is what I think. Well, all artists must be fearless, of course, but yours is a very specific kind of fearlessness because it comes completely unexpected.
I think art makes sense only if it is exceptional. And if you work as a poet, as a writer, as a painter, you just have to put everything into it. With poetry, it's harder to explain because it self-generates itself over time and then congeals into a poem. And so there might be long time before the poem is written, even though it's in your mind. Painting is clear because when I do my watercolors, I think you can see that the time it takes to make them is embedded in them. You can see that maybe a painting, which I often incorporate my poetry in my painting, might take 2 months, a month and a half to make of work, everyday work of 8, 9 hours, 10 hours of work. And in one word, I'll describe them. They're structured as a fabric that's drawn and a text appears as an embroidery in the watercolor. So you can actually see the woof and all the lines of a fabric and embroidered inside the text. So that's there is easier, but time is very important, both in poetry, which is all about yes, image and song, but song requires time and a sense of timing, which is so much embedded into what you do. And some poems might seem like nothing, but they're extremely dear to me. In the second part of the book.
Yes, we shall come to that. But here, let me make a transition to your paintings and imagery. In this poem you just last read, at the end, this moment comes when this fading woman flashes her bosom to you, like a last sort of holding on to life. And it's like a scene from a movie, or it's an image. It's a very powerful image. And the whole awkwardness and the sadness of what's going on is immediately captured in that 1 second. It's almost an image, like cinematographic. But your paintings also, all watercolor on drawing, have also the same delicateness, sparseness. They're not crowded. And you put them parallel with your poems sometimes. And this lovely book of poems, of course, is interspersed with some of your, a few of your lovely paintings. Oh, and this image of the woman at the end is one of my favorites. And of course, I should remind our viewers that Paolo exhibited a dozen of his wonderful paintings back in 2021 in Istanbul Literature House. Image and text, because you use some of the text of your poems in your paintings, and then your poems are very much given to imagery and timing, as you said. So it's as if the two go together.
They do go together. In fact, in 1978, or 79, no, 1980, I'm sorry. I did make an exhibition of the large poem drawings. At the point, they were only done with pencil. And next to them, you'd have the small watercolors, as you would have side footnotes in text, sort of like the like a correlative objective of a painting. Now, let me raise this here.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get very, very close, you can see how it's drawn. The text is as if it were appearing in sand or in fog.
That is one of your hallmarks.
Yeah, I will say, I'll try to send you a picture and a detail. Otherwise, you cannot really see unless the Melancholy Poem is composed of 9 sheets, and I can give you the size, the dimension of it. 9 sono 3, it's about like meter 80, about meters 40.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It was, oh yeah, it was 3-4 months of work.
Wow. There's also a pointillist, we call it in Turkish noktacı, pointillist backgrounds to your some of your paintings or grids, and your poems are almost pointillist too. I cannot call them surrealist, or I cannot call them impressionistic. I can call them pointillist because you catch details.
I'll take your text. I will use it if I may. But let me give you just a little background for all of this. When I started painting, when I had the idea that I was going to become a painter, it was very early. I was 12 years old. It was I was in boarding school. We had a teacher who seemed very old to me. It turned out he was 20 years old and I was 12. And he seemed like And I was in a class with 2 people. It was a tiny school. And where I think they put children of divorced parents and children who were too bad or too stupid to go through the public school system in Italy. So it was a disaster. I was 12 years old with 2 15 years old who could not be accepted into any public school anymore, because if you flunk twice, you're out of a school you were out of a school system at the time.
Of course.
We had this teacher said, buy some Caran d'Ache watercolors, buy some paintbrushes, a ruler, blah, blah, blah. In the first class, he just taught us to find the center of the page, and that's it. The second class, he appeared with a book, which was Tonio Kröger, by Thomas Mann, and he said, take dictation and write on the back of a sheet where you'll paint. And he he dictated the lines in which Tonio Kröger, already an adult, on a beach in winter of Denmark, sees Hans Hansen and Inge Holm, the 2 loves of his childhood and adolescence, both blue-eyed. His thing was that the blue-eyed people would be happy, have a right to happiness.
Exactly, and he feels like he'll never be like them. They're normal people who are destined to be happy, and
And he sees them kissing at the distance, and he doesn't know what to do, because they're the 2 people he loved that are together. And then he just said, okay, illustrate them. In that moment, I knew I was going to be a painter. My world opened. My world opened.
When did you feel you were a poet? Later, much later?
It was always in between. But then I end up by privileging images painting, and so I've written less than I've painted, but I knew that's what I want to do my whole life.
What a wonderful memory.
connecting literally text and
image.
an image.
This is your one of your big
moment,
specialities as an artist. Yeah.
The moment that when things become incredibly clear. Of course, there's always other moments when other things become clear, fortunately. So it's not only the you know, the desires for your life, but there are other awarenesses that come.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I love the way.
I can give you another story which explains a lot. Okay, 1961. So you can think of a time in 61. Italy was quite similar to Turkey at the time.
Oh, yes.
It still is, but it was really...
I know that now after reading Ferrante's novels, and she's a generation older than me. The 50s childhood in Napoli is exactly my childhood in the 60s in Turkey. It's yes, they were very similar. Late developers, both countries, probably in some senses.
They were, at one point, there was a real... So anyway, I take the funicular to go to boarding school the first time of the year. The first time, I hadn't been there. And I had met another Italian boy, also 11, going up in the funicular. We started talking, and there's a man, age unfathomable. You know, anybody over 18 was adult to us, who says, do you know if I'll find a job at the end of a line? And my friend said, I know the director, because I met him before. We'll ask him. And the director was waiting for us, you know, the two boys from Torino arriving after 6 hours train to the top of a mountain. And my friend very bravely says, do you have a job for this gentleman? And so, and that was, you know, the director said, we'll see. Anyway, 3 days later, I see him in the courtyard of the school. And so I said, Lamberto, he had introduced himself. He said, did you get a job? And he said, yes, I did. And washing dishes, you know, in the kitchen. And I see him, he's having a sandwich. And I said, Lamberto, what are you eating? And he says, I made a sandwich, 2 slices of black bread and a slice of white bread inside. I never had white bread in my whole life. Good. And then I knew that exact moment that there were others in the world, and that my, how do you call, sheltered.
Exactly, but that's such a scene. Again, it's very cinematographic almost. It's like Rocco e suoi fratelli.
But it was I mean, literally was
you know, Italian neorealism.
I feel that in the first week in school, I learned everything that guided me onwards.
What a life story. But let me touch on something, and then we'll pass on to the, if you allow me, to the Mermaid Poems. The poem that starts, what to say of the man who swallows marble, of the man who sucks stones, of the man who became marble, and of his long sweaty sleep. This gives me an image. I don't know you enough, but I know a little bit about your life. It suddenly gave me the image of a man being petrified in midlife. Was this you, because you had to abandon painting and poetry to become a world famous curator just because you had to? Yeah. Is this you being petrified in midlife?
Yeah, I was petrified. Yeah.
Because you had to do something else.
Yeah, life has its ways of making you do things. On the
Such
other
a wonderful, almost a confession, a very delicate confession of something that happens to a man at some point in his life. But you became a world famous curator. I mean, what did fame do to you?
It's very simple. Okay, a little story, you'll laugh a little, if I may. When my wife became pregnant, I knew that I needed a salary every month, and you certainly don't have one as a painter, and therefore the only thing I knew was art, and applied for curatorial jobs. And nobody wanted a curatorial job at the time. And I applied for a job, and I was one of 3 applicants. And so they brought me in to interview me, and the director of the gallery, so University Art Gallery, said, "Why do you want this job? It's a terrible job. It's literally horrible. The teachers are demanding, the students are spoiled, uh, they all want everything. It's a terrible job, you know." But I needed a job, and I said, "No, I really want it." And so she said, "Okay, if you really want it, I will support your candidacy." And she did support my candidacy, and I did get the job. But the funny part is who she was. Um, Her name is Anne Jarmusch. She was the sister of Jim Jarmusch. The,
Oh, the film director. So she was running this art
she's running
museum
this
or...
art center. This is University Art Gallery, this art center. And so I jokingly say that the way I got my job, my first break, was Stranger Than Paradise.
Wonderful memory. But
And
how did fame change you? Because you became very famous as a curator and an art aficionado.
I just needed to work, and I put lots of enthusiasm, and I learned huge amounts from other artists, huge amounts, and therefore that was something that supported me and yeah, got me very far. But it was yeah, I did with enthusiasm, with no regrets. You know, I
So, famous curator, and you spent years wandering the world, and you contributed a lot to the art life of Istanbul, which is a whole chapter by itself. We won't go into that. Istanbul will always be grateful to you.
Vice versa.
That's wonderful. Okay, now we pass on to the Mermaid Poems. The Turkish translation is the first translation ever, which I'm going to always say, you know, I'm so proud of it. Starting with this wonderful picture of a text, the name of the book, and it's also one of the little poems.
Yeah.
Now here we meet another Paolo Colombo. Yes, there's melancholy again, but there's also humor. We meet you or your alter ego as a man of the sea, an aquatic person. But again, it ends with a woman lying dead, and there's sadness and loss. But again, in the shore, like a child, you play and you find things, and it gives us hope.
Okay, I'm going to show you something, if I may. May I take the computer? You're in my studio.
Athens studio.
And I don't know if you can see what it is.
Oh, yes, the painting.
It's a carpet.
Can you do it a bit towards your left? We can't see the whole picture.
Okay, let me see.
A bit more under and to the left. Yeah, okay. Wonderful. That's the name of the book, the poem, the two-line poem. Wonderful. So that's a huge picture.
It's a carpet.
Oh, it's a carpet. Of course. You're into textile as well. I forgot. How wonderful.
Here is a painting, which is a poem. Can you see it?
Yes.
And I'm going to go very close.
Let mermaids flirt with you, with me.
I go very close so you can see the way it's painted.
Oh, wonderful. Again, the grainy background.
Yeah.
Why do you want mermaids to flirt with you, Paolo Colombo, or your alter ego?
Because I love
You're
mermaids.
trying to lean on the navel of a mermaid.
Yeah.
Mermaids have navels, I suppose they do.
Yes, they do. They do. They do. They start.
Apparently, the doll Barbie didn't have a navel when they first created her, but then they said, okay, mistake, and put it back. But mermaids have navels. There's such delicate humor and longing. Tell me how these poems were born.
These are born by for hope, and you know, generally poetry is born because you miss something fundamentally, you know, so they're born as a dialogue with someone with whom the dialogue is somehow interrupted or marginalized.
That's the most wonderful definition of poetry I've heard recently. Wonderful.
But let me see.
Shall we read a few?
I think I would like to read the first one.
Okay.
Because, sorry, I'd like to read the first one because it is very much what I think poetry is, image and song. And song is made of size. Lyric songs are fundamental size. So I will go. A warbler warbles in a dove coos. A short hesitation.
That's beautiful.
Which
I really had a hard time translating this, because warbler, I had to look
I know it.
Then I did find it. It's a kind of nightingale that lives in gorses, you know, gorse kind of wild plants, and in the nature. In nature, it's a very free kind of bird.
It's very easy in English. This can never be done in Italian.
Why? What is it in Italian? Not nightingale.
No, because to warble does not exist, the verb. You'd have to tweet, which is cinguettare.
So lovely, a warbler warbles. And the Turkish is bir çalı bülbülü ötüyor ve bir kumru sesleniyor. Kısa bir tereddüt. I was so tempted to say kumru says ku, but then I decided not to sort of imitate your wordplay, and I became conservative in my translation. But that still haunts me. I wanted to say
it sounds totally perfect to me. It reminded me in Turkish of a song by Ashik Veysel, which is, I think, oh my gosh, I don't remember the title, but I think the translation is in cities, nightingales cry. Şehirde bülbül alayan.
Ağlıyor.
Ağlıyor, exactly. And it's a fantastic song.
Lacrimosa. But why, with this humor, hope, playfulness? Your navel is beautiful, your midriff a dream. I would kiss them for days. It's wonderful. These erotic, playful imagery. Then sadness, did you receive my love the way I meant to send it? It's so playful. And then, not in sleep nor in water. Okay, we're saying, okay, this is not reality. There's kind of a memory and dream play going on here.
Absolutely.
And then we have the body of a dead woman. That's how we finish.
That's
a shock.
Così corpo stremato, di ancora inconsueto, esangue assoluto, giaceva adornato di rose e di viole.
Anything spoken in Italian, I immediately fall in love with. I love this language.
You're a dream. Thank you.
But may a lovely little collection, which is full of hope as well as sadness. Bravo.
May I let you know what I'm working on now?
Please do. Yes, let's close that way.
Because it is, you know, as we say, it is about sighing, it is about timing, it is about economy of words. So I'm working on a number of poems, 3 or 4, not more, you know, of about third people I see and I imagine their life. And this one is about a watch repairman whose shop I saw ages ago in Athens. His shop was as large as the bookshelves behind you and your table. And he had old watch he was trying to fix, cheap watches, you know, inexpensive watches. And I saw him at night all the time, all the way at dawn. So this poem also has a time and place. Black for night, gray for dawn. In Athens, watches sweep at each swing of a balance wheel. I repair watches. I lead a negligible life. No, it was not always so. My mother once told me that I was born with my hair parted on the side. In summer, in slumber. That is, in summer, in sleep, my neck sweats on the pillow. In sleep, my spirit, just a mouse, furtively slips on my mouth. Yes, sleep, slumber, mice, and the balance wheel.
Oh my God. The images tie a whole story of your life, his life. Wow, bravo.
And I can
That's
give
wonderful.
And I can give you a few indications. Okay, I was born with my hair parted on the side. There is a lore in Italian, northern Italian lore in Trentino Alto Adige. In the 16th century, there had been some trials of people who were accused of doing wizardry. And their identification was that when they were born, the hair was parted on the side.
So you think you were born under a sign?
And yeah, you know, and clearly this is again a story of having an incredible possibility, which is magic, and literally to let it go. And it's hot in summer in slumber, that is in summer in sleep. Next sweats on the pillow, you know.
But that's wonderful because it talks to us.
Human, but still in sleep, even though it's a
exactly not in sleep nor in water. Yes, it tells us of how a young small boy is trying to hold on to life. Yeah. And the trauma and the happiness of childhood both together. You're such a magician, Paolo.
You're too kind. But I'm happy to have written this. But it is also about pauses, you know, about respiration and the idea that this, from repairing watches, one goes to a magic period which did not come through. But still, your spirit, just like a mouse, you open your mouth and the little mouse runs away.
What an imagery. You're really incredible. Well, I'm going to suggest to everyone to close our wonderful conversation to try and get this book. If you cannot participate in the Istanbul Literature House book festival in Istanbul, then you can shop our books and all the other participating boutique, independent, small publishers' books on Shopier, for example. Our address will appear on the screen. Paolo, and because I think this is one of the best poetry books in English to have appeared in 2021, even though I'm saying so myself. I read a lot of poetry in English, I can say it safely. Thank you so much for joining us, Paolo.
Thank you. And if we close now, I'll say goodbye to you, but stay online because I want to ask you something.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone.
Thank you again. Grazie. Çok teşekkürler.